You don't lose control in conflict. You reveal it. Most men misunderstand this moment completely. They believe anger hijacks them, that pressure overwhelms them, that emotions take over. That belief is comforting because it removes responsibility. The truth is harsher. Conflict does not create emotion. It exposes the level of command you already have. When voices rise, when respect is challenged, when stakes appear, your emotional state doesn't change. Your structure collapses. This is Stillness Misdirection. If you're here for anger management tips or calming techniques, this will feel wrong. But if you want to understand why some men remain immovable in conflict while others unravel, stay. And if this way of thinking resonates, like the video and subscribe, not for motivation, but to train your mind to hold its ground when pressure arrives. Here is what most men never admit. They are calm only when nothing threatens them. Their control depends on environment. That is not control. That is convenience. Real control is revealed only when something pushes back. The Japanese understood this with brutal clarity. They never asked, "How do I stay calm?" They asked, "Who is in command when pressure arrives?" Because emotion is not an enemy. Emotion is energy, and energy is either commanded or it commands you. Modern advice teaches suppression. Breathe it away, count to 10, calm down. This works only when pressure is mild. Under real conflict, suppression fails. Because suppressed emotion does not disappear. It waits, and when it returns amplified. The Japanese rejected suppression completely. They believed that any emotion you must hide already owns you. Instead, they trained kokoro seigen, command over the inner domain, not emotional silence, authority. They believed the heart, kokoro, was a territory, and like any territory, it must be ruled. Not negotiated with, not pleaded with, ruled. This is why Japanese warriors could face insult, threat, and danger without emotional leakage. Not because they felt nothing, but because emotion did not dictate action. This is the difference most men never understand. They confuse calm with control. Calm is fragile. Control is structural. Calm breaks under pressure. Control absorbs pressure. If conflict makes you reactive, defensive, loud, or impulsive, it's not because you're emotional. It's because no internal command exists, and conflict exposes that instantly. This chapter should unsettle you because it removes another excuse. That situation made me lose control. No situation can take what you never had. In the next chapter, I'll show you why suppressing emotion always fails and why modern emotional advice makes men weaker in conflict, not stronger. This is where most men unknowingly train themselves to collapse. Most men believe emotional control means hiding emotion. They clench their jaw. They hold their breath. They force calm onto their face. And they call this control. It isn't. It's delay. Suppression does not remove emotion. It stores it. Every emotion you push down waits for a moment of weakness to return. The Japanese understood this early. They saw suppression as dangerous because it creates the illusion of control while guaranteeing future collapse. Modern advice encourages this mistake. Stay calm. Don't react. Control your anger. These phrases sound disciplined, but under real pressure, they fail, because suppression requires constant effort, and effort collapses when intensity rises. This is why men explode suddenly, not because they are emotional, but because they have been suppressing for too long. The Japanese never trusted silence that required force. They believed any emotion that must be hidden already has leverage over you. This is where Kokoro Seigen diverges sharply from modern thinking. Kokoro Seigen does not suppress emotion, it commands it. There is a critical difference. Suppression treats emotion as an enemy. Command treats emotion as energy. Energy does not need to be destroyed, it needs direction. Anger, fear, excitement, aggression, these are not weaknesses. They are raw power. When suppressed, they rot. When directed, they serve. The Japanese trained men to feel emotion fully without allowing it to dictate action. This is why their control looked unnatural to outsiders. They were not calm, they were contained. Containment is not silence. Containment is structure holding pressure. Imagine a blade. A blade is dangerous not because it is sharp, but because it is directed. Undirected sharpness is chaos. The same is true for emotion. Modern men dull themselves emotionally, hoping bluntness will protect them. The Japanese sharpened emotion and built command around it. This is why suppression always fails in conflict. Conflict increases pressure. Pressure breaks weak containers, and suppression is the weakest container of all. The Japanese built stronger containers. They believed emotional leaks revealed gaps in internal command, not character flaws. When emotion spills into reaction, raised voice, impulsive movement, defensive speech, it means structure has failed, not emotion. This reframes everything. You stop blaming emotion and start correcting command. This chapter should unsettle you because it removes a comforting lie. I just need to calm down. Calm is temporary. Command is permanent. In the next chapter, I'll reveal the core of Kokoro Seigen itself, how the Japanese established absolute command over the inner domain, and why this method feels cold to modern men. This is where emotional control stops being a technique and becomes authority. The Japanese did not believe the heart should be free. They believed it should be ruled. They called this rule Kokoro Seigen. It does not mean emotional balance. It does not mean inner peace. It means absolute command over the inner domain. The heart, kokoro, was seen as territory, and territory without command invites invasion. Modern men treat emotion like weather, something that arrives, passes, and must be endured. The Japanese treated emotion like force. Force must be directed, or it becomes destructive. This is where Kokoro Seigen begins, not by changing how you feel, but by deciding who gives orders when feeling arises. The Japanese believed the first failure in conflict is not emotional intensity, it is loss of command. When anger appears and action follows automatically, command is gone. When fear appears and behavior shrinks, command is gone. Emotion is not the problem. Automatic obedience to emotion is. Kokoro Seigen trained separation, not suppression, hierarchy. Emotion exists. Command stands above it. This hierarchy was enforced physically. Posture did not change under emotion. Breath did not accelerate uncontrollably. Voice did not rise impulsively. These were not habits. They were laws. The body became the first line of command. If the body remained ordered, emotion had no path to hijack behavior. This is why Japanese warriors focused so intensely on form. Form was not aesthetic, it was control. Modern men try to control emotion from the mind. The Japanese controlled emotion from the body outward. They believed the body obeys command faster than thought, so command lived there first. This is why Kokoro Seigen feels cold to modern ears. There is no emotional processing here, no venting, no expression for relief. There is containment. Emotion is allowed to exist, but it is not allowed to speak. It waits. And when emotion waits without action, it loses dominance. This is where most men fail. They feel emotion and assume it must be answered. They think ignoring it is unhealthy. The Japanese believed answering it immediately was weakness. They trained delay, not hesitation, delay with structure. Emotion could surge. Command did not move. Over time, emotion learned its place, not because it was punished, but because it was never obeyed. This is Kokoro Seigen in practice, not calmness, not emptiness, authority. Authority that does not negotiate. This chapter should feel unsettling because it removes a deeply modern belief that emotion deserves a voice in every moment. The Japanese believed emotion deserved discipline, not expression. And this is why their control held in real conflict. In the next chapter, I'll show you how this command was protected under pressure, how posture, breath, and timing formed armor that prevented emotional hijack when provocation intensified. This is where Kokoro Seigen becomes unbreakable. Command collapses where structure is weak. The Japanese understood this better than anyone. They knew emotion does not overpower a man directly. It enters through gaps. A loose posture, an irregular breath, a rushed movement. These gaps are invitations. When provocation hits, insult, threat, disrespect, emotion looks for a path to action. If structure is present, there is no path. This is why Kokoro Seigen was never mental alone. It was physical first. Posture was non-negotiable. The spine remained upright, the shoulders stayed set, the head stayed level. Not because it looked disciplined, but because posture decides who is in control. A collapsing body signals surrender before words ever appear. The Japanese believed the body decides faster than the mind, so they placed command there. Breath came next. Emotion hijacks through breath. Short, shallow breathing accelerates reaction. Fast breath amplifies impulse. The Japanese trained breath to remain even under pressure, not slow, controlled. Breath set the tempo, and tempo determined whether emotion could rush action. Then came timing. Most men lose control not because they feel emotion, but because they respond too fast. Immediate reaction is obedience. The Japanese trained delay, not hesitation, measured pause, a fraction of stillness before movement. That pause was everything. It broke the chain between emotion and action. Emotion could rise. Command remained. Structure absorbed the impact. This is why Japanese warriors looked unshakable, not because they felt nothing, but because emotion had no access to behavior. Modern men try to manage emotion internally. They talk themselves down. They analyze feelings. They search for calm. All of this happens too late. The body has already moved. The voice has already changed. The Japanese never allowed it to start. They built armor, not arguments. Structure was that armor, and armor is only tested under pressure. The Japanese expected provocation. They trained for it, not around it. They believed any structure that works only in calm is not structure, it is decoration. This is where modern emotional advice fails. It works in peaceful conditions and collapses the moment conflict escalates. Kokoro Seigen demanded reliability under attack. If posture broke, training intensified. If breath failed, drills returned. If timing rushed, discipline tightened. There was no comfort here, only correction. This is why emotional hijack became rare, not impossible, rare. And rarity changes behavior. When emotion fails repeatedly to seize control, it stops attempting. This chapter should feel demanding because it reveals something uncomfortable. Emotional control is not achieved by insight. It is achieved by structure that holds under pressure. In the next chapter, I'll show you the final test of Kokoro Saigen, what happens when provocation is deliberate, personal, and relentless. This is where most men lose command permanently, and where the Japanese either held the line or were broken. This is where emotional control is truly tested, not in random conflict, not in accidental pressure, but in deliberate provocation. When someone wants a reaction from you, when disrespect is intentional, when the attack is personal, most men collapse here because provocation is designed to bypass logic and strike identity. It says, "You're weak, you're disrespected, you must respond now." And most men do. They raise their voice, they justify themselves, they rush to defend. And the moment they do, they have already lost. The Japanese understood this with ruthless clarity. They believed provocation is not an attack on emotion, it is an attack on command. Provocation only works if it triggers movement. Words alone have no power. Power comes from reaction. So Kokoro Saigen trained one absolute rule: never give the enemy movement. Not physical movement, not verbal movement, not emotional movement. Stillness was not passivity, it was denial of access. When provoked, the Japanese did not rush to respond. They did not explain themselves, they did not correct the insult, they did not escalate. They held position. This feels unnatural to modern men, because modern men equate silence with weakness. The Japanese equated silence with dominance. Why? Because provocation feeds on immediacy. If reaction is delayed, the provocation loses force. If reaction never comes, the provocation dies. The Japanese trained this relentlessly. They exposed themselves to insult, to mockery, to intentional pressure, not to toughen emotion, but to strengthen command. They allowed emotion to surge without allowing it to move. No facial change, no posture shift, no tonal rise. The body remained ordered. This confused opponents because provocation expects compliance. Silence breaks the script. This is where most men fail permanently. They believe they must prove something in conflict. The Japanese believed proving was surrender. If you need to prove control, you do not have it. Holding the line means this: you do not move until you decide to move. Not when emotion pushes, not when ego demands, not when insult calls. Decision belongs to command. This is why Kokoro Saigen is so rare. It demands humiliation without response, pressure without justification, attack without defense. Not forever, but until action serves purpose. Most men cannot endure this. They would rather explode than feel disrespected silently. The Japanese chose the opposite. They accepted momentary loss of face to preserve absolute command, and command outlives insult. This chapter should make you uncomfortable because it exposes the final weakness, the need to react. If you cannot hold the line under provocation, emotion owns you. In the final chapter, I'll show you the state the Japanese reached where provocation no longer worked at all. Not because they resisted it, but because it no longer found anything to grab. This is where emotional control stops being effort and becomes identity. At this stage, the Japanese no longer thought about emotions at all, because emotions no longer dictated anything. Kokoro Saigen had done its work. Command was no longer something they activated under pressure. It was always present. Emotion could rise: anger, fear, excitement, aggression, but it rose inside boundaries. And boundaries change everything. Most men believe emotional control means never feeling strong emotion. That belief is false. The Japanese felt emotion fully. They simply did not allow it to decide. By now, posture did not collapse under pressure. Breath did not accelerate into reaction. Timing did not rush to satisfy ego. Command had become automatic. This is the final state. Not calm, not numbness, immovability. Conflict no longer disrupted internal order. Insults lost their leverage. Threats lost their urgency. Provocation lost its purpose. Not because the man was indifferent, but because nothing inside him was unstable. The Japanese believed that conflict only moves a man who is already divided. If ego seeks validation, conflict pulls it. If fear seeks safety, conflict pushes it. If pride seeks recognition, conflict provokes it. Kokoro Seigen removed these dependencies. The man no longer needed to win emotionally, so conflict had nowhere to attach. This is why the final stage feels invisible. There is no dramatic moment, no final test, just a quiet realization. Nothing can rush you anymore. You act when action is required. You speak when speech serves purpose. You move when movement is chosen, not when emotion demands it. This is why Japanese masters appeared cold to outsiders. They were not cold, they were resolved. Resolution ends internal noise. Resolution ends emotional leakage. Resolution ends reactivity. This is what modern men lack. They are intelligent, they are capable, they are ambitious, but they are unresolved. And unresolved men are easy to move. Kokoro Seigen resolves the inner domain completely. Once resolved, emotional control does not break under conflict because there is nothing left to break. This is the end of the path, not self-improvement, not anger management, not emotional intelligence, command. Command over self precedes command over anything else. And once command is established, conflict loses its power because it no longer decides who you are.